welcome to the Natural Doctors. I'm Dr. Jen Stagg.
And I'm Dr. Katie Dinello. We're so glad you're joining us. We are doing a 3-part series all about weight loss resistance, root cause of weight gain. So we are very excited about this topic. Now, it's a really important topic. I'm sure all of you know somebody, maybe yourselves, who struggle with weight loss resistance. It's estimated that only 6% of people in the United States are truly healthy. And we are at the point now where metabolic disease actually is a more significant problem than infectious disease is. And that turning point is a really big deal. So, we're not just talking about weight gain and weight loss resistance, but everything that comes with that: diabetes, cardiovascular disease, fatty liver disease, which is a huge problem as well. And so we're very excited to dive into this topic with you. This is something that I do in clinic pretty much every single day. Both of us do this every single day. The thing that functional medicine and naturopathic medicine offer for weight loss really stems from the fact that it is so much more than calories in and calories out. We're really getting to the root cause of these issues. So let's get into it. One of the best places to start here is talking about how the environment impacts our inability to lose weight. And so we know that environmental toxins are a big issue here. Are you talking about environmental toxins when it comes to your patients who are struggling to lose weight? Is that something you're seeing?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're so overloaded, right, in Western society with all of these chemicals. And interestingly, some patients are bringing it up that they're seeing this on social media as well, like changing out their cookware, being concerned about things like forever chemicals. That's a big issue, right? So people are getting a little bit more focused on cleaning up their kitchen where they're preparing this food and they're getting exposed to chemicals, not even like the chemicals in food, which we've talked about certainly as naturopathic doctors for a long time, which we'll also get into. But things obviously like BPA, a lot of parents kind of think about BPA because of baby bottles, but we know that's a big issue in our world, and that can affect estrogen metabolism. Other chemicals like glyphosate, I think, is like a huge one. So we're definitely talking about organic, right? If you choose organic, glyphosate, for anyone who's not aware, is a pesticide that's used in the production of wheat. And there's a lot of drift with glyphosate, so you can see it in other crops as well. But it really destroys your microbiome and your gut barrier, which can lead to inflammatory issues, which I know we're going to get into for sure. But these are chemicals to really think about and really find ways to limit your exposure as much as possible. But all these chemicals are in our environment are just like putting us in this toxic soup, and it's burdening our detoxification pathways, right? So then that's another aspect that I think we'll get into certainly in more depth.
Yeah, exactly. There's so much to cover here. So this, environmental toxins, it's one of the root causes when it comes to reasons why people can't lose weight, right? So it's like you get, a perimenopausal woman coming to see us and they're like, I'm doing everything, but that weight is still not budging. This is often one of the places that I start with. So I like all of those examples that you said, right? I love that it is becoming so much more of a common topic to talk about, almost at the point where patients are coming to me saying, how can I clean up my environment in my house, right? What I'm eating, things like that. So if that's a place that you haven't tried, really trying to clean up the products you're putting on your skin, in your hair, things that you're cooking with, right? That is a great place to start when it comes to weight management.
Yeah. For sure. And then the next thing then is like the actual chemicals that are in the food that we're consuming.
Yes.
So glyphosate being one of those, but then all of the chemicals that are put into processed food. And so I think a statistic I saw was 60% of the food eaten by Americans now is ultra processed.
Yeah.
Which
exactly.
is crazy, right? And so this is something, I know we had a little conversation about seed oils.
Yes.
And we were sort of like, okay, the bandwagon on seed oils, like, yes, there are some not so great seed oils, but another aspect that comes along with seed oil consumption is processed food, right? So there are all these other ingredients, artificial dyes, preservatives. There's been a lot of awareness this year, especially about about dyes in foods, which is great, right? That we're starting to see changes like this, but we're still a very chemically burdened society when it comes to food. Like people are just not eating real food. And 60% of a diet of like the standard American diet, and some people it's even more than that. But like getting it down to like 20% ultra processed food, that's still not good.
It's still not good, right? Exactly, exactly.
People were not eating that much food in the 70s, and we all go like, well, why were people so thin in the 70s? It's like it's pretty obvious, what the differences are between now and the 70s.
Exactly, right? I mean, and this isn't a surprise. I think when I look at our landscape when it comes to food, in relation to being overweight and obesity, I see it as like, well, of course, being overweight and struggling with weight loss is a very natural consequence of the way we're eating. And so that's really how I try to approach it with patients. And I say, it's not about willpower, right? It's not about shame. I don't want you to have shame or guilt over this. But it's more like, let's look at this as, yes, of course, this is just a natural consequence of the foods that are being driven to us, right? And what's convenient. And so I tell patients, our society doesn't make it easy for us to lose weight. And when we look at what's on our shelves, what food is convenient and easy, and what we're told of like, oh, just eat this, it's super easy, it's available, right? Like they're all processed foods. And so it's frustrating as a consumer, right? Like even myself, I have a degree in nutrition, right? We've been studying this for a long time, and I still go to the store and still I read every single food label of a new item that I pick up because I want to know exactly what's in it. And I'll admit, I get disappointed when I see something fun and fancy on the shelf and I'm like, oh, I want to get that. That looks good.
Right.
And then I read what's in it and I'm like, no, like that's not food. I'm not going to eat that.
Yeah.
So it's frustrating, but the thing is we can make empowered choices around it. I want to go back to what you said about seed oils as well, because there is so much hype right now on social media about seed oils. But what you said is seed oils are really a representation of processed food. So it's not like it's exactly the seed oils that are causing any one issue like weight gain or weight loss resistance, but it's the fact that, they're a representation of processed foods, which yes, those are going to contribute. The other thing here is we have to remember that processed foods come at a cost. So convenience comes at a cost, right? So if it's more convenient, it likely is going to be denser in calories. And that, that matters, right? Yes, it is so much more about calories in and calories out, but they still matter. And we still need to bring a level of awareness to those calories, right?
Right, absolutely. And I'm definitely on board with that and have worked with patients for years talking about calories still matter, because there've been a lot of course, all of these weight loss trends and diets, and a lot of times we're just trying to jump on like the latest trend and still not have to worry about calories. Like I remember when keto came out, people were like all in on keto because they thought like, oh, well, I could just eat as long as I'm in ketosis, I'll lose weight. But that wasn't the case. You had to still have like a calorie restriction.
Right.
And then you could lose weight.
Yeah, exactly. And that's tricky to do on keto, because fat is really calorically dense, right? Fat and protein. Right. So you can't just be eating as much as you want and think that you're going to lose weight.
Yeah.
So exactly.
And right. And especially with keto, and keto is right for some people and not right for other people. But another aspect with keto is that if you are eating like non-organic fats and you're not eating what we would call a clean keto, those oils are going to, and fats are going to have a lot of those environmental chemicals in it. So that's where you're going to have all these bad environmental toxins that we just talked about. So that's something to really consider, especially if you're eating keto and eating conventionally, you could maybe not have good outcomes with it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. And then the other main thing we have to talk about when it comes to these processed foods is the hyperpalatability aspect. So for those of you who don't know, companies literally hire food scientists to make their foods taste as palatable as possible. So they engineer these foods perfectly. So the texture and the taste just makes you want more and more. And it really does play on the dopamine in our brain. And so patients will often tell me like, gosh, I just feel so addicted to these foods, right? I can't stop. And yes, like that's not an accident. These food companies are doing this on purpose. So again, like what I said, convenience comes at a cost. It's not just the high calorie aspect, but it's also what these foods are doing to our brains. And it makes us want more and more. And so you really do get addicted to them. And it's a problem.
You do. And it's sort of a perfect storm, because the other thing that's firing off dopamine is using our phones and screens and scrolling, especially. So social media and the scrolling, that's so addictive.
Yeah.
That's dopamine, right? So you're fired up with dopamine, and then you got foods that are firing that pathway, and making it wonder people have like serious difficulty being able to like control their food intake. And that's where we talk about, yes, like you shouldn't have shame about the lack of willpower, because these things are very, very potent, right?
Exactly. And, you know, we'll talk about this at the end of our episode a little bit more, but after a long, hard day at work, when you're exhausted, the easiest choice is always going to be, let me grab food that's convenient, that tastes really good. Let me get my phone, let me scroll, right? Get that dopamine hit. And so, you know, I also tell my patients, like, weight loss doesn't just start with you stopping the snacking. It really starts with what you're doing at the beginning of your day to set yourself up for success and really fill your cup in other ways besides scrolling and food.
Yeah. So maybe we should talk about cortisol and stress culture that we're in now. But yeah, that is a huge piece of it. And when we think about it from a naturopathic standpoint, when we're working with patients with weight management, we're very much thinking holistically, right? So we're not only thinking about the chemicals in the environment that we're being exposed to, the types of foods that we're eating, but also that mind, body, spirit connection, right? So now people have really caught on to the concept of cortisol could be an issue. This could be a reason why they're having difficulty losing weight. But a lot of times they're coming in for like the quick fix for the cortisol, and it's bigger than that, right? Of course, it's bigger than that. And it's just like our fast-paced culture. We're sort of like living in this survival mode, basically, is what it does to us. And of course, our body is going to respond as it should. Again, this is an adaptive mechanism that makes sense in light of what's going on around us. And that's going to spike our cortisol levels. And then cortisol has a whole cascade. I think we're going to talk about that in a lot more detail in another episode. But it does do things like, you know, raise your blood sugar, it impairs thyroid production, and then it's really going to increase your cravings for these like quick energy boosting snacks too. So again, like you've got this sort of vicious cycle going on with that.
Exactly. And even deeper than cortisol is our full circadian rhythm, right? So that's what cortisol is. It's part of our circadian rhythm, right? So for those of you who don't know, when we wake up in the morning, our cortisol naturally rises. That's what wakes us up in the morning as melatonin decreases. The opposite should happen at night, where cortisol lowers and melatonin rises. That's why we should get tired, right? So that is our circadian rhythm. And we test a lot of cortisol levels in people. So we see all different patterns of cortisol. And something I see very often is almost the opposite of that cycle, right? Where cortisol is very low in the morning when people are waking up, and then it's very high at night when people are trying to go to sleep. And so, yes, we want this quick fix of what supplements can I take to fix this? And I say, we can use supplements for sure. They can be helpful, but we really need to look at your day and look at what's happening in the morning when you wake up, what's happening before bed, and then all the hours in between, right? And most people are really stressed doing 1,000,001 things. And so the treatments there are always really root cause of get yourself outside in the morning, expose yourself to sunlight, walk on the grass, right? All these things that sound so silly and we laugh when we talk about them, but they matter so much.
They do. They absolutely do. Because this is another sort of adaptive mechanism to essentially disconnection from nature. Like that's what we're dealing with here. And so getting back to getting into that rhythm with your natural environment is so, so important for your overall health. The other aspect is just also going back to gut health and having that exposure to soil and like, you know, spores in the air, that does have an impact on our gut health and our gut barriers, our microbiome. So it is full picture, right? That being outside, not only are you going to be tuned in to the light cues and the energy from the earth, you also have this living, beautiful earth that is interacting with you as well. And so it's more about swap outs, right? Like let's move back just like our parents would say, as we've gotten so far away from natural living. And that's why we are saddled with the health burden that we have right now, right?
And people are craving that. I mean, gosh, the number of times my patients say something along the lines of, I wish I could just live on a farm and not go to work, right? Like, I wish that could be my job. And it's funny, but I get it. I get the sentiment. And so I want to, talk a little bit more about this disconnection from nature because it's a really big deal. So when patients come to me when they're struggling with weight loss, something that they say to me a lot is, I just can't stop snacking at night, right? Like I come home from work and I feel like I'm just unloading from the day. It's my safe space to be at home. So I just grab, whatever snacks I can. I turn on Netflix or I scroll on my phone and that's all I can handle. And so to that, I say that is a prime example of disconnection from nature because there's no supplement that we can give you that's going to fix that feeling of like needing to fill your cup with, sweet treats and being on your phone. Like if you think about what you've been doing all day, you've been working for other people, right? You've been going to work, working, for your boss or doing projects for those you work with, right? It's not actually for you all the time, unless you're us and you get to help people all day, which we love to do. So we are very lucky in that sense, right? Or, you get up early and you're, struggling with the kids and you're trying to get them to their activities and school and then work is stressful. So you coming home is the first moment you've had all day where you're like, I can relax. And so, this connects back to what I was saying earlier of we need to start thinking about what can we do earlier in the day that's going to fill your cup, right? What can you do? And maybe it's not realistic for you to go outside and get sunlight, that's ideal. But if you can't do it, that's okay. Can you get up an extra 10 minutes earlier so that you can journal, you can meditate, you can pray, right? Whatever your spiritual practice is. And can you use that time to meal prep, make a salad, right? Make something healthy for you to bring to work. Those are really small ways to get that connection back.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when we think about what, just as you said, what's driving people to make poor food choices, and it's so easy to do, is that your brain chemistry gets set up in a certain way, and it all stems from like your sleep and how you start your day. Right. So having those practices are so important. And you're right. Like everybody can't get, especially now in the Northeast, as we start to head into winter, like walking outside barefoot. So sad. It's going to come to an end.
It's cold. It'll be really cold.
But at least like you could start sitting next to like the side of the house that your sun starts to come through or is already coming through, depending on what time you get up in the morning, and starting to get some of that exposure to natural light as early as you can, and hopefully not on a screen right away. That can make an impact and influence in, how you're going to make food choices throughout the day.
Yep, exactly. Okay, so we have a couple of minutes left. Let's spend it talking about some of these solutions because we might sound a little pessimistic now going through all of these root causes, but we really wanted to highlight them so that, number one, you you understand that weight gain doesn't need to be about shame. It doesn't need to be about what you haven't been doing. But again, realizing that it's a natural consequence of what our society has really done in terms of convenience and toxicities and ultra processed foods. And now, what can we start to do about that? And again, none of this is brain science, right? Like, we know what to do. It's just a matter of doing it in a way that feels natural and feels doable and manageable, right?
Absolutely. So it's kind of like, I think about it like setting yourself up for success, because our society is not set. They're setting us up for failure and like terrible chronic health, and let's get on all these medications and be chronically ill for whatever time period that is.
Okay.
So the biggest thing I would say, if we start to go through our list of, okay, let's start, of course, how we started our day. We talked about that. Eating real food, right? I think the next thing maybe we talk about a little bit is how to eat specifically to support maybe like detox pathways because of our chemically burdened environment. Yeah. So what are some things that you like for recommendations for patients to really support your natural detox pathways that are there to help support us, and they're so burdened and sluggish? Let's use a little plant medicine maybe there, right?
Exactly. Absolutely. So I love this. And then, you know, one more point there too, is that when we do start to lose weight, we have to remember that as we decrease the size of our fat cells, we're going to be releasing toxins as well. So we need to make sure that our liver is well supported to detox these. So the first thing I like to recommend for patients is, if we're drinking a lot of coffee, can we make a switch to something like green tea, right? Green tea has a lot of antioxidants. It's very healthy for us. It really supports the liver. So that's one of the things I have my patients do. And then the second thing is, can we get greens in? Dark greens, bitter greens, dandelion greens, Swiss chard. Like, if you're making eggs in the morning, can you just cut up some greens and add those in? If not, make sure you prep your lunch. Get up 10 minutes earlier, right? Just prep your lunch to include some of those greens. And there you go. Between green tea and some nice bitter greens, you're already doing great things for your liver.
It's so great, because it doesn't have to be that complicated, that you can find a lot of these foods just in your regular grocery store. Some people might want to add some concentrated punches of teas, right? So of course we can give herbs in capsule form and tinctures, but I'll also recommend teas for patients to get, like, you can get roasted dandelion tea that tastes very earthy. You can get detox teas that are organic, and you can find it in your like regular grocery store. Like, if you go into your even conventional grocery stores, in the tea section, you'll find organic teas in there.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's such a great way to also stay hydrated. So another huge piece of this is not drinking enough water. And again, it sounds so simple, but just drinking water is a great way to work on those detox pathways.
Maybe microbiome too. We should hit, as we've got like not much time.
I know
left.
We don't have a lot of time left. I think that's a great place too. And something that I do, and I have a lot of my patients do this. If you're one of my patients, you're going to laugh. I tell you to take a spoonful of sauerkraut in the morning with your breakfast, right? I think we get so hyper-focused on how challenging it can be to make these changes. So I tell my patients, take a step back and let's make it easy, right? Get a big container of sauerkraut at your grocery store. It's not super expensive. And all you have to do is take one spoonful in the morning. Like, even when I'm running around, getting the kids ready, packing lunches, packing my own lunch, all I do is I open the fridge, I take a spoonful, and I'm like, all right, good to go. I'm feeding my microbiome with some really good bacteria.
That's so wonderful. And as we increase the amount of like real food in our diet, more plants, and even like teas are going to really help to feed those natural microbes in your gut, like Akkermansia. We're going to get into that. Stay tuned in the third episode, where we're really going to get into GLP-1 support as well, and the whole mechanisms. But your gut is really important there.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I think that's it for this episode. Thanks so much for joining us. And please watch our next episode and subscribe on YouTube. Thanks for joining us.
Nick Augustino right here at the East Side Restaurant. We always have the complete full dinner menu. Knockwurst, bratwurst, sauerbraten, potato pancakes, red cabbage, rice pudding, cream pies, all the desserts that Germany had to offer. I always do something different. Yes, I do. I brought seafood to the beer garden at the East Side Restaurant. East Side Restaurant, your German destination restaurant in Connecticut. Tiki-taka, hoy, hoy, hoy!